excited to welcome these beautiful women from The Landing. So many of you know that I am passionate about fighting sex trafficking, and you guys are on the most authentic path to help victims of trafficking and help our community. And I want to give you a huge thank you for what you do. And a big thank you to Adam Andrus. I'm having hair envy today. This guy has the most amazing hair and the most amazing talent, bringing us to you. And you guys can listen to this on SoundCloud and YouTube. But right now we're live on Facebook. And I ask that you share it. If you're compelled by our story, that you share it. And I also want to say it's my 100th podcast today. Yeah. This is number 30 of Living the Authentic Life. But prior to this, I hosted 70 podcasts called Styling Social Justice. And I feel like we're continuing that mission of bringing the women of fashion, because I love fashion, into really feeling like we're making a difference in our community. And I've been diving so much into authenticity, into purpose. And in so much of the research I've done with purpose, it's to realize that a big part of our purpose is to also feel that we're helping other people. Mm-hmm. And you guys have you've had, Hilary, you have had a journey in the nonprofit world of helping people, and and then Cara, you came from Accenture in a corporate environment, but also did mission work. So each of you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you landed at The Landing.
Yeah. I'll start. My name is Hilary Sherrer, and so I grew up in Arkansas, actually, small town, middle of nowhere, pretty much. I moved to Texas because I got a job working for a summer camp called Camp Ozark, which is it's a wonderful sports and adventure camp for kids. So I worked.
The Torn family.
Yes, such a great family. Yes. Wonderful. So I grew up going to the camp. It's about 30 minutes away from my home in Arkansas, and so when I graduated from college, they said, "Come work for us." Moved to the big city of Houston, and I was like, oh my goodness, I know no one, I've never been to Houston, this is crazy, but jumped into it. And so worked there for 3 years. And then I just felt the Lord saying, all right, it's something new, time for something new. So didn't know what that was, had no idea what I wanted to do, what was even out there. So actually just God put the story of Abraham on my heart, of just go, leave what you know, leave your land, and trust that I will guide you wherever I want you to be next. So actually jumped into unemployment for a month, and just sat with the Lord and said, God, if you want me somewhere, you're going to lead me. I trust you. Open the door and I'll follow. And so during that month, actually, instead of watching Netflix and just kind of chilling and waiting, I said, you know what, I'm going to make a difference in this waiting period. So I started actually volunteering at The Landing, going every day, just doing whatever I could, whether that was sorting clothes or just working the front desk, little things that weren't even that big of a deal, but they were making a difference every day. And then at the end of that month, the executive director at the time and one of our co-founders, Natasha Paradeshi, she came to me and said, you know what, I see that you are passionate about this cause. Mm-hmm. You have been committed to this the whole month that you've been here, and we're looking to hire someone. Would you be willing to do marketing, communications, volunteer coordination? And I was just like floored in that moment of like, God, like this is my background, this is what I want to do. I had no idea this was out there. Like, you're bringing my passions and my skills together. Like, yes. And so I just jumped in. And so I've been at The Landing for over 4 years now, and it was totally God. He knew I would have had no idea that I could be a part of this without letting go and trusting him and just obeying him and giving it a chance. So that's how I got here, and I have been so blessed being able to serve and, again, just use my passion and my skills and abilities together to make a difference, and it has given so much back to me than what I could ever have given it.
Wow. So in my research, I also identified this term called ikigai, and it's a Japanese term, and it says when you figure out what you love and what you're passionate about and what you're good at doing and what the world needs, and you can make the world better, and you can get paid for it, it's called ikigai, and that's exactly what you've done. And I, too, have taken this time with COVID in particular to really slow down. But I have to admit, I've watched a lot of Netflix too. Did not cut Netflix out. I know it's a guilty
totally
pleasure.
fine.
But also really been listening to God. So I love that because I feel sometimes we're on that hamster wheel and we can't stop enough to hear the message that he has. And I love that that's part of the journey with the landing is the spiritual journey. How did you come to the landing, Cara?
Yeah. So my journey is a little different. One of the things I love is that all of our staff and volunteers just came to the landing through different paths, but the Lord brought us to the same place. So for me, I had more of a business background. I, after college, spent a year doing mission work overseas. And that's where I really first learned about human trafficking. I worked with some incredible ministries in India and in Thailand that were doing street outreach, or they were doing kind of early prevention efforts with at-risk youth. And I just saw how they were bringing light into these dark places. And it just planted something in me that I think the Lord years later used to bring me then to the landing. But I moved to Houston to work in consulting, and so I was there for a number of years. I just got involved with volunteering through different organizations. It was so eye-opening for me. I think like a lot of people, I thought of trafficking as international. You know, I thought of it on that scale, and I didn't realize it was happening here. And so then when I learned about, you know, Houston as kind of one of the big hot spots in the U.S. and the prevalence of it here, it really just moved me. And just, I think the Lord worked on my heart, and I was in a season where I was working a lot, and I think I was really reflecting on my purpose and thought, you know, I've got these gifts and these skills and background, and what if I applied it to something that really mattered? And at the same time, there was an opportunity to join the landing in kind of more of a business capacity. And so it's just been this incredible thing where I've been able to bring over that background and the things that I know how to do, but in a setting where we're able to help survivors and we're able to, you know, mobilize the community and kind of be a part of this movement. So it's really just a joy and a privilege that I've been able to come and join the landing.
So amazing. Well, I love fashion, so I'm so blessed to be able to work in the fashion industry. But as I said, I also love movies, and I was talking about Netflix. So Pretty Woman kind of glorified being a prostitute, and it made it look like, and my favorite scene out of the whole movie was when they won't help her in the store, and she walks back in with all the bags, and she says, mistake, big mistake, because they didn't help her. So, but we have a road like that here in Houston, Texas, where people can drive up and down like he did and pick up a prostitute, and what people don't know is oftentimes those girls aren't prostitutes, they're prostituted, which is a different, and that is on Bissonnette between 59 and the Beltway, right oddly next to the most expensive car dealerships in Houston on that route right there. And you guys have a drop-in facility that helps kids. I mean, there's kids that are 13 and 14 years old that you service. Tell us a little bit about the reality of that, and that's not shown in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think there can be this portrayal of sex work as really empowering, and what we see is often the people that we serve, they are coerced into it, or there are just a number of underlying reasons that they are in that situation. And so, we work with people who are being trafficked, or they are being forced to be in that situation. And so we are located on Bissonnette, which is that hot spot, and we really try to be just a safe space where people can come and receive services, so they can just walk up, they can get their basic needs met, things like food or a place to rest or hygiene products or clothing. And then we have case managers that work with them on their goals, whether that be their education, if they want to get their GED or need to get a job. And we have trauma therapists who support with their counseling needs. And so we really try to just be this kind of non-judgmental, safe space where people in that community can come, and we try to build trust with them and just meet them where they are. So that's really kind of the heart of the landing and our drop-in center that's located there.
And a lot of people think, like, well, these women are in chains, which some of them are behind bars, but so many of these girls, it's more about the mental captivity than it is about the physical captivity. So when you say they come in and drop in, but they don't necessarily come in and say, I've been trafficked. They're not even aware that even maybe what they're going through. Will you share a little bit about their mental state and how you guys kind of help them through that process?
Sure, absolutely. So, yeah, like you said, most victims don't even know what trafficking is. They don't even understand the concept of maybe exploitation or what they're going through. And the majority of people that we see, they simply have been manipulated, like you say. Maybe it's emotionally, maybe it's psychologically, mentally. There are vulnerabilities that have been taken advantage of. And so, maybe it's a family member. And so when I look at my family members, I don't think of them as any bad person, even if they do something that is maybe hurtful to me. They're not
We
bad.
are told
They're
to
my
forgive
family.
them.
Absolutely.
We're
They're my
told, and then
family.
sometimes, many times, when we tell an adult, they even say, oh, they didn't do that, or they don't
Exactly.
believe you, or the adult isn't in a position to go out
Right.
from that abuse because the person perpetrating the abuse is the financial breadwinner in the family and controls the family.
Right. Or think about romantic relationships. When you believe that you love someone and someone loves you too, you almost give them an excuse for anything because it goes back to that, oh, but really he loves me or she loves me, or really, but they're taking care of me.
And that was most surprising to me, that most of the girls that are prostituted believe that their pimp is their boyfriend, and that believe that they are selling them for money, but the pimp still loves them. And so they don't walk in and say, help me, give me a counseling session and pray with me.
Right.
So how does that process work?
Yeah, and so, I mean, it's the same as, within the domestic violence community, there's that question of like, well, why didn't she just leave? And that kind of emotional bond and some of the underlying reasons are just so deep. And so, we follow at the Landing the Stages of Change model, where we know that, like any New Year's resolution, if you aren't like in a place of committing to a change, you're not going to make it. And even within that, you might relapse. And so we try to meet people if they're kind of pre-contemplated or not really at a point where they're committed to a change yet. Sometimes we just try to build trust and engagement. And that's really all we do. And then we try to expose them and make them aware of kind of the reality of what trafficking looks like. We have a class called Ending the Game that helps. It's a survivor-designed curriculum that helps just introduce some of those ideas of this is, what you've experienced, help them process, their relationship with their trafficker, with that lifestyle, and they can, on their own, come to understand their experience and process it, and it helps break those bonds through that education. And so a lot of what we do is, if they're ready to, get a new job, find stable housing, move on, we meet them there. But if they're really early in their journey, we really try to tailor the way that we meet them and approach them and the services we provide, and kind of walk alongside them as they're processing that and moving along in their journey.
And I find the strongest connections when there's trust. And I think that's important that you mentioned that, because it is a big part of that whole journey. And so the other program that you guys have is the youth advocacy program, where you connect the youth with an advisor, or do you call them a counselor? Tell us about that. And they walk with them through the whole process so they know they can trust that person, because so many victims suffer from a loss of trust with someone who is in power over them, authority figures saying they love them, and then not showing up. So that trust has to be hard to earn.
Yeah, so we started our youth advocacy program last year. We started as a drop-in center mostly for adults in that community, and then we found with a lot of the adults we served, they were first exploited when they were a minor and they were youth. And so there's just that need in Houston, as law enforcement is increasing their identification of these young victims, they needed a safe person who could walk alongside them. And so our advocates are on a 24/7 on-call schedule. And so if they get a call day or night from law enforcement or healthcare or child protective services, they go out and they meet the kid wherever they are, just in that moment of crisis. And they're that person who can kind of be with them in the moment. And then from that, they build the relationship and they go to their appointments with them. They kind of advocate on their behalf. They really get to know the kid and their story and their needs and make sure that those things are being voiced with the other partners in that process, just so they have someone who kind of understands the journey that they're on and can help guide them through it. And so that's really our hope with our advocates. And, you know, a lot of it's helping them with resources, but a lot of it's just emotional support and being a listening ear and just being someone who's there for them and can be a friend outside of their family unit or, you know, counselors or anything else. It's just someone who's kind of in their corner and can be there with them and just listen to whatever they need to share.
And another part of the research that I've done is finding out about blue zones. And this is kind of a stretch, but blue zones are places where people live to be 100 years old. So they looked at what values were in their life. And one of the most important things for these centenarians was having a community that supported them. And there were even places where you were born in an area of Japan and you were given this group of people. And I think sometimes we forget, even if our parents aren't perfect, my 13-year-old certainly would not pick me as mom of the year. But we forget that a lot of people in our community, like, you don't have to go to Thailand to do mission work. Like,
Right.
there are people here who don't have a safety net, a group. I mean, there are groups like Big Brother, Big Sister that go and advocate for that. And oftentimes in domestic abuse, it's building that. So I think that's such a simple thing that we take for granted in our life, is that we even have a support system. And I also commend you, because a part of the journey that I wasn't thinking about was when there wasn't a court-appointed person or a person to go through the journey for them, they had to retell their story over and over.
Right.
And that's so traumatizing, and is part of the PTSD that they go through and part of all of that difficulty. So tell us a little bit about, if you are in the community and you want to advocate for someone, what are the ways? I mean, it could be as simple as just praying for them. You guys have an amazing program set up for prayer.
Yeah, so I would say, first of all, would be maybe start with some awareness first. And if you're new to this, you know, there are different resources out there that are available.
Yes. And your website.
Absolutely. We have on our website, we have a 2-pager front and back thing with just some statistics, facts, information.
TheLanding.org.
That's correct, TheLanding.org. And so that's one way to start. We also have a class coming up that's free to the public, to the community. Anyone who wants to register on our website, again, you can jump in. And that's going to be a 1-hour class next Friday from 12 to 1. And we're just going to go through facts, figures. What does it look like here in Houston? So that might be a first step. And then once you kind of get maybe your foot in the door about awareness, we would love for you to come and pray with us if you're willing. We have a call on Mondays from 12 to 1, a Zoom call right now, of course. And so we have prayer requests on our website. Again, you can download a sheet that we update every month that has requests specifically for victims, for the landing, things that are going on in our community. And you can join that and pray with us from 12 to 1 on Mondays, or just by yourself. We also have texts to your mobile phone. If you're a person that wants to get texts on the go, you can text at pray 4TL to 81010, and you'll join a group that gets weekly updates, real-time texts. Like last week we had a survivor who needed medical attention, and we were trying to get her attention like right away. We weren't quite sure where she was, but we needed prayer. And so people were just texting in, I'm praying right now, I hope she's okay. And so we were able to, of course, get her that help, and then we could send it back out and say, hey, she's safe, she's in good hands, continue to pray for her, but like, thank you, your prayers make a difference. So that's, yeah, like you said, a great foundational way to get involved.
Well, I think during COVID, I don't know if I said this on air, but we were talking about it before we went on air. There's so much isolation during COVID, and I mean, there are definitely days I have to pick myself up and choose joy. I have to say,
Absolutely.
I am joyful. I have to profess it. I have to read scripture. I have to get myself in the right headspace. And the most interesting thing is, by giving to other people sometimes we get a lot. And I've noticed that, like, I'm so inspired by sharing you guys' story. It makes me full of love to know that I can help you. And I think that if people are looking for joy in their life, that they can join this movement. They can become a part of our journey. I'm a part of Houston 20, and that's website is fightforus.org. And we support organizations like you in the Houston Area Against Trafficking organization, which you guys are a member of, and you guys work in collaboration with so many other people. Tell us a little bit about those collaborations with other HAT members.
Yeah, so I mean, we really recognize that no one organization can fill all of the needs of a survivor, and so we try to come together as a community. And so for us, we're located on Bissonnette. It just gives us kind of that point where we can meet people there, but they have certain needs where we might refer to other partners who are also anti-trafficking organizations and do incredible work and cover kind of different needs than we do, whether that be they need long-term residential care, or whether they need legal advocacy, or they need shelter, or whatever that might be. We partner with others. And then one of the things that's really great about Houston is we have just kind of at all levels, human trafficking is a priority. Through the state governor's office, we partner with them for our child advocacy and for a drop-in center. Through the city of Houston, Munal Davis has done an incredible job of coordinating this response across the city. And then with healthcare and law enforcement, we all try to come together and make sure that we're kind of learning from one another, and we're consistent in being able to, as victims are identified in different settings, they're getting connected to services, and I think that is really important, and it's the best way to meet the needs of the survivors in our community.
Well, I was reading the other day about Amber Alerts and saw that Rick Perry was the one that instigated that. And I found this statistic interesting in regards to Amber Alerts. It says sometimes some runaway groups estimate that 1 in 3 young people are solicited for sex within 48 hours of running away. And some of them are abducted, but some are runaways. And is that with the Amber Alert? Are there other ways that the community can reach out to us? Are there other ways that people can help with that? Are you working with, I guess that's a different HAT member that does that. But tell us a little bit about the runaways.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I would say that absolutely the vulnerabilities that are present whenever a person runs away is what traffickers then capitalize. So when you know of a runaway, or you may come across someone who you may think has run away, obviously I would say if you are able to engage in a safe way and just ask them questions and see if they're okay and that kind of thing, go for it, absolutely. Obviously the police is a great thing to contact, but we also have the National Human Trafficking Hotline number, which is a toll-free number that anyone can call if you have any information about that. But you can also call us, you can call the landing, and we would have the right resources to connect people through either our youth advocacy program or, like you said, other HAT members in our city who are doing exit teams and rescues when people need that assistance and are willing. But I think, one thing that you kind of mentioned is it's that trust building that kind of starts at first, because of course when we see people even on Bissonnette every day when we're driving in for work, my heart just wants to pull over and grab them and pull them in my car and say, I love you, I want to help you, come, I'm going to give you a hot meal and clothing and let me help take care of you. But like we mentioned, it's meeting people where they're at and helping them along their journey rather than forcing them into where we think they should be at or along the journey that we think they should take. It's restoring that choice and that freedom that has been taken away from them and empowering them. So, back to the runaways, that's why we think the drop-in center model is so unique and important, because it allows some autonomy of a person choosing when I want to come into the drop-in center and when I want to get the food and who I want to talk to, and then freedom to then leave and make choices, and when they want to go to a shelter, and when they want to get help and that kind of thing. Obviously with minors there's a little bit of a difference of just making sure we tell the right people and report that where it needs to be reported, but that's why we think this model is so beautiful.
And again, it's not just happening in the impoverished areas in Houston. It happens everywhere. I was talking to teenagers in West U, and there was a girl that ran away, and she said that she ran away because her mom was an alcoholic, and then the mom and dad were looking for her, and the police were involved, and the kids, and this was all just in West U happening.
Sure.
And they were saying, oh, the girl was going from friend's house to friend's house. And I said, okay, that's called couch surfing. And that is a sign to be aware of. If no one knows where you are, then you might end up on the wrong couch. And so I just think there's so many factors that we have to realize. Are there, do you share some of those too in your 101? Or can we walk through maybe some of those things to think about?
Yeah, some like the red flags and things like that. Absolutely. Yeah, so we can mention a few. So obviously there's, like you said, there's kind of different demographics, and it can look very different, vastly different across communities and different situations. Some of the bigger things that we're seeing is things like, obviously any abuse that you might see or hear of. We see things like bruises and tattoos, but even more, I think, menacing is social media and the internet, because that's the things that you can't see necessarily. So it's when usually teenagers or kids are being approached by people online, and so it's new friends that maybe parents aren't aware of that kids are meeting online. And so and even like through gaming systems, I think of our young boys and girls who are playing these video games on the internet, and they're meeting people online. So those kinds of things, I think, are red flags that specifically parents need to be having conversations about their children about, hey, what apps are you on that are cool? I have no idea what cool apps are right now. I just want to learn. Tell me about why you use that app. Why do you think it's cool? Who are you meeting online? Those kinds of conversations, so that we can understand who our kids are, where they're going, who they're meeting, why, what's their motive behind all these things, because those are some of the red flags that we see that are leading toward the grooming process beginning in those young kids' lives.
And there's also human trafficking that's different than sex trafficking. Is that something you guys address as well?
So human trafficking is the umbrella that encompasses labor trafficking and sex trafficking. So the labor trafficking piece is something that we would definitely accept anyone and help them, but most likely refer them to partner organizations who are better set up to meet the needs of the people that have been labor trafficked.
And with that, so we work with anyone who has experienced commercial sex industry. And so we do that because there's so many victims who have not been identified within that. There are some estimates that less than 1% of human trafficking victims are actually identified worldwide. And so we try to create a safe space where we can get to know people, where we can connect them with services. And within that, one of our hopes is to be able to identify within those, victims of sex trafficking. But we know that anyone who's in that space, they're just inherently difficult things. I mean, it can be they can experience a lot of violence. Like a lot of times they're just, root causes of, childhood abuse and trauma, and just a lot of constrained choices that lead people into this situation. So we just try to be a safe place for anyone who's experienced the commercial sex industry.
And if people wanted you to come out and speak, do you go and speak to NCL chapters or to churches or different organizations?
We will speak to anyone and everyone. Yes. We have a form on our website that you can go to, again, thelanding.org, and you can request a presentation, whether that's, during these days, we'll do Zoom presentations or in person. I went and spoke to a nursing home, or like a retirement home, of people that were just passionate about taking care of their grandchildren. They said, I hear this is happening. We want to know more. And so we will go anywhere and everywhere.
Absolutely. Please reach out if you want us to present. We would love to share.
And it's Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and your 5th birthday.
Yes.
So are there special things? You're doing the one-on-one training, but you're also having a birthday party this year.
Yes.
Yeah, we're really excited. So as of last Monday, we opened our doors 5 years ago on Bissonnette, and we just wanted to celebrate with the community. So we're going to have an event in April to be able to have tours of the landing for anyone who wants to come and see our center. Then we're also going to have a rooftop party that's socially distanced and outdoors, but a way to just kind of gather together and celebrate all the things that have happened through the landing.
And do you find that after survivors have gone through your program that part of the journey is that they're coming back and wanting to help others? Because I've really seen that and been so fascinated by that, being willing to help and give back.
Yeah, absolutely. So we, I would say, really our program never ends, technically. You know, once a survivor has entered our family at the landing, they can be a part of it for their entire life. When they come to a place where they're at a place of independence and stability and they're ready to kind of transition away from our more intensive programming, yeah, absolutely. We have them come back. They can speak at our support groups, and we've had a couple of those survivors come back and be leaders in that community that we are hopefully fostering at the landing. And it is just a beautiful thing because there's a relatable factor there that, you know, I could never bring, and just a beautiful picture of that group.
And I also heard it said that most, not all women who are prostituted are strippers, but most girls who are exotic dancers or strippers are also prostituted. And I think that that is interesting because a lot of people have this impression that these women are making big money and they're loving the lifestyle and it's a great journey. And so men shouldn't feel bad, men and women shouldn't feel bad about giving to that industry or being a part of it. Can you talk a little bit about your perspective on that? Because it was really eye-opening to think of it in this way. And so even if you don't have girls, there's ways that you could change the mindset, because a big part of the reason there is trafficking is demand.
Absolutely.
People want it and pay for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say absolutely. We have multiple survivors that we have worked with that have been in and even currently are in the stripping, pornography, those kind of industries. I remember one of our case managers actually even told me that there was one survivor that particularly stuck out in her mind that said, you know, I have been both working in a club and working on the street of Bissonnette, and I would take the street over the club. And that just kind of woke me up, kind of like what you were saying. I would think maybe the club is safer, or
they're protected, or they're
absolutely.
given good salaries, and they're
things.
given breaks, or whatever it is.
Yeah. So, and I can't, claim that for everyone, but for her particular situation, that was her perspective and her opinion, and that just struck me. And I absolutely agree that there is a vulnerability that is being exploited, and there are factors within the pornography, within stripping and clubs, that helps feed into the demand for trafficking. And that, how many of those videos online of women, they're trafficked women. They are not choosing to be there. I wonder how many women on that stage, there's some kind of something that brought them to that place. And if they had the option and ability to be somewhere else, would they? I can't answer that question for everybody, but it makes me question and wonder. And I definitely believe that men in our community have a responsibility to play in helping push back on the demand and disrupt that demand in the anti-trafficking industry.
Yeah, I think, to your point, there are really 3 parties involved in sex trafficking. And so we work with the victims at the landing. And I know you've had Jonna Stallings on previously, and she really works on prosecuting the traffickers. And then there are others, like formerly Love People, Not Pixels. I think Disrupt Demand is their new branding.
Yes, they just launched their new name
I was trying to remember
Big
it.
shout out to them.
Exciting, right?
But,
Disrupt
that's really
demand.
their focus, is addressing the demand portion. And all of those are so important. And absolutely, if you are passionate about fighting sex trafficking, there's supporting the victims, but there's also looking at what's driving the demand for that in the first place. So I think that's so important to look at all aspects of it.
It is. And I remember when my daughter says I never know the name, so I won't know. Like the woman who was like the #1 song in the country was about getting paid for sex or your sexuality. Who was it? Is it Nicki Minaj? Or I'm so sorry. I should know if I'm going to say it.
Cool in this moment.
I know. Sure. But the whole song was about her being paid for sex. And some women were saying, oh, that's so great that she's empowering herself sexually and she's not being a sexual object. But I sat down with my daughter and she was mortified, and we read the words to the song, and it was glorifying someone paying for your education because you had sex with them or buying you gifts because you had sex with them. And I think that as long as we, again, it's these movies that glorify it, it's this music that glorifies it, and we have to be aware of that with our kids and the way we message to them. And I am in a different place in my journey right now, so I'm listening to KSBJ in the car, and I know that's not normal, and everybody's not going to do that. But we are really active with our daughter, and we've said, if you're going to be posting on TikTok, you have to make sure that the words in that song are also not going to come back and haunt you, that it's not sexually explicit, that it's not because it's also not healthy for her to hear that repeatedly, because you get numbed by it.
Absolutely.
And that's a big part of this pornography thing is spiritually we can say it's bad, but if we're not supposed to judge other people. But the other thing is we can say you are being numb to this by seeing this sexuality over and over and over repeated to you. You're saying it's okay. And that's what so many of these women who are prostituted have been through. And unfortunately, our foster care system is broken. And many survivors I've talked to have been victims of the foster care system. And I don't even pretend to know how to overhaul that. But if this person you trust was doing this to you, and then you're getting paid to do it, well, you're like, well, this person didn't give me anything and I'm getting paid for it. I might as well take the money. And it's even more about just the way we raise women to believe they're worth more. And there's a lot to just that basic core value that if we share that with the community, then that, or just within our families, that we're worth more than sexualizing ourselves. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. Completely agree with you. And I think about the women and even the men that walk into the landing, and that is something that we are trying to almost restore and instill, is the belief that you are valued, you are worthy of the love that you have not experienced in your life. And I think it goes back to that trust building. And it's almost like if that can be the first thing that someone starts to believe in again, oh yeah, that's right, I'm valuable, I'm worthy, I have a purpose, then that is almost like the start of then, okay, now I can dream again, and I can achieve my goals, and I can reach for the stars, and I can get that job, and I can go to that apartment, and I can, move and move and move. But it's really, that core thing that's the first step of really realizing I'm not a throwaway. I'm not just the person that no one cares about, but I do have purpose in this life.
And I don't have to be ashamed of my relationship with God, and that God
Absolutely.
forgives me of everything that I've done, and that there's no shame in that journey. And we have to forgive ourselves before we can really move on and grow.
Sure. Or even forgive others.
Exactly. And to forgive the trafficker, because to walk around with that pain is such a huge part of the journey. I read that our hearts are too precious to carry that pain. And for some reason, I found that really compelling. I feel like that's directly from God. Well, we are almost coming to the end of the podcast. I want to give you guys time to share if there's things that you want to share that are coming up, or ways people can get engaged, or ways that people can financially assist, because I know we at Houston 20, we try to give grants, and we looked at your grant, and I don't know if Amy Pierce has been in touch with you yet. Has she? Okay, so I won't share anything, but there are always needs financially, and there's things that you could do, praying, as we mentioned. How are other ways that people could feel like they're making a difference?
Sure. I'll start with two more things. One is volunteering, serving with us. So our three things that we kind of say is pray, serve, and give. And so obviously we talked about the praying, and so service. We have a volunteer orientation coming up. It's going to be on Zoom, but it's in early February. So that also is on our website. So people can sign up if they're interested in getting involved and working in different areas, like whether that's coming to the drop-in center and actually working there, doing donation sortings, answering the door and the phone, and just being a welcoming presence for survivors, whether that's going on street outreach with us and trying to connect with the individuals in that Bissonnette area, whether it's helping with transportation when someone needs a ride to a job interview or a court appointment or a medical appointment. And there are other ways to get involved too. But if you're interested in that, jump on and get involved. We also have a list on our website where you can fill a need. We always have things that we need at the drop-in center and for our youth advocacy program. So whether that's, clean underwear and bras and socks, whether that's food, snacks for our program. We have a whole list of needs on there, so you can go on thelanding.org again and see that list of needs. We have an Amazon list, so you can easily just, one click. Amazon's made it so easy nowadays, and just get that shipped directly to us. So if you're someone who wants to, get your kids involved, you could gather some things together, maybe create little sacks or bags or write notes or something like that, and bring those to the drop-in center or have them shipped to us, and we would love, and those would make a big difference, even in small little ways.
I love that.
Yeah. And I would say with that, we were talking earlier, but if you have a Bible study or in your workplace, a group that would like to learn more about this, we're more than happy to give awareness presentations and help your group get involved and plan service projects or different things. And so that's another great way to just get the word out in your community where you have influence, or, like you're doing with your podcast, just use where you are. And then, as you alluded, we're a nonprofit, so we always need financial support as well. So you can give through our website to support our mission at thelanding.org.
Wonderful. Well, you guys have filled my heart and put wind in my sails to go on. And it's nice to know that there's so many ways we can give back, even during COVID. Yeah. And it's such meaningful work, and I love that you guys shared, and God bless you guys. And I'll be posting things on my stories. Please send to me so I can share with. So many people are reaching out and asking me what they can do, and I think it's great to have next steps. Well, guys, have a great week. This was the perfect 100th podcast from me. So thank you so much for sharing. And you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next